But definitely a little bit of a different video here because we're looking at Justin from behind. And for the context, and Justin, tell me if I'm wrong here, but there's like a little bit of like an imbalance that goes on, and you've been trying to figure out like why this is happening, shoulder to shoulder.
Yes, and then I just saw my PT a couple days ago, and so I have a little bit more of a treatment plan to try to fix. And I'll say what the treatment is after we look at it, so you guys can kind of take a look
That's what I
first.
was gonna say. Let's look at it and see like what's going on, and then we'll kind of get into maybe what that treatment plan is. Because probably a good opportunity for all of us just to learn something new, maybe. So the sleeve arm looks like the one that's leading the way. I'll play it one more time. Like that one looks a hair higher to me
Yep.
than this one. But then I see something off the get go before you even move that I would double check. Your hand placement, like if I look at the knurling, they actually look balanced to me. However, you look like you're maybe shifted a hair that way. And I don't know that it's your actual lineup on the bar. I almost am curious that if you're just a little crooked to begin with, and if that's part of like what we see here. Not to say that that's what's going on totally, but I think maybe that comes into play a little bit. And the only reason I notice it is because I'm like that. Like if you look at me straight on and you really look at like my shoulders, my chest, I'm crooked, and it's from my hips, and it kind of like stems up. So that's just an observation that I noticed.
You can look at my waistline, and you can see my left hip is lower than my right hip too.
Yeah, look at your pant line. You
Yep.
can see it there too.
Yeah, Justin, it's your left shoulder you're having issues with?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could definitely see the scapular dyskinesis.
Yeah, look at even. I mean, I know you're like taking steps, but look how much. Look at the difference
Yeah.
in like each room too.
And then
So
the other thing too that I noticed, sorry, don't mean to steal anybody's
go.
thunder.
This
So
is your jam.
go back, pause at the top. Hold it. Look at his upper trap. Look at how overactivated it is compared to his right.
Sorry.
So
It's yeah.
usually,
He's like very shrugged.
yep. So usually, like with anyone with shoulder injuries, the trap will overcompensate and work a lot more to try to help and aid out. So that's also like another kind of like telltale sign that, he's been having some sort of issues.
To build on that too, and like related to Justin, but also like I'm gonna like slightly side tangent it. When we look at something like the snatch and the overhead squat, and we look at those positions, and we're trying to get an external rotation of the shoulder, like look where my shoulder actually goes. My shoulder starts to drop when I rotate because I'm putting it in the socket. So you can look at that in those movements as well. And a lot of times when people don't rotate and they just drive up, it gets very like what would you call that? At least like trap dominant. Like the
Yeah.
trap starts to try to take over and compensate. So you can look at it in people, and it doesn't mean I think all the time that they're having an issue, but it also just means they may be lacking that external rotation and actually proper positioning. So something else is having to do the job when it shouldn't be. So just for like a side note, you can look at that in overhead positions of anybody.
Well, two things you just have both said, or two of the issues that she's trying to correct. So basically, one of the treatments is going to be overhead press and just focusing at the top on external rotation, and then, as Elise pointed out, to not shrug. So I'm doing those two things with this one exercise. So not
Being very
shrugging.
mindful to keep that shoulder down while you're actually doing it.
Yeah, like I'll be doing a couple sets of it, but basically I'm doing like 5 reps really slow, and then at the top, really emphasize external rotation and not shrugging.
And like let yourself pause there, feel it, be aware of it, and then go to the next rep kind of thing.
Yeah,
That makes a
so
lot of sense.
that's one of the exercises, and she also gave me chaos carries, where I have a barbell overhead, and on my left side there's a band with a kettlebell.
Yep.
And so it works on stability, the stability muscles.
What a appropriate name for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you would have it just, and I would like say like pretty lightweight with that band.
It's like
On
a
that side.
4 pound, yeah, it's like a 4 pound kettlebell, so it's really light. But by 30 seconds in, I'm feeling pretty fatigued in my left shoulder.
It's just, it fires it up real good. Yeah, if you guys have never done like, especially something overhead with bands like that, start off very cautiously, because you'll put something on that you think is light, and those bands really do like throw a big curveball. We just had overhead carries in class the other day, and one of the things I was trying to like really drive home was, people are just here, and then you have like a couple tiers of the athlete, the ones that just walk like this, and you have to fight them all day to straighten their arms. And then I had people that were stacked really good, but they were rotating, and the dumbbell was like turning, and they were rotating the wrong way, trying to get them to continue to externally rotate even in that narrow grip. So it definitely feels different. And it just like brings me to the point that like when we do these accessorizing movements, so whether we're doing it for injury prevention, trying to get healthy from an injury, trying to improve some kind of lift, or whatever the goal is, you have to have very focused intent behind it. Using Justin as a good example here, like he could do exactly what his PT told him to do, and he goes to the gym and he does overhead holds and overhead carries, but if he is not in proper position, it's not going to improve. So like to use this as a really good example of why like slowing things down, not always trying to go for load, quality over quantity, and like speed and all those things is so crucial. And with the band thing, you said a 4 pound weight. So minimal, like 4 pounds is nothing. And how that can actually make a difference. Anything else any of you guys want to add? Good, like thoughts or questions? Once you get through like maybe a handful of weeks, Justin, I'm just curious, take another like shoulder press video and use like the same load or very similar in the same angle. And I'm curious to see, what the difference visually would be. Because I think that would be cool. Because I think what you're having in the problems, at least you can maybe double down this. I think it's a lot more common than we realize it is.
Yes,
Do you agree?
absolutely. Yep.
So this could definitely be a good tool that we have, for any member in the to get them to do it. And like those overhead carries, very easy thing to implement in your warm up. I know you guys, when you coach, sometimes having accessory work after class, it's like herding cats. People start to disappear, and you just never see them again, and they're escaping out of the accessory and they get home. So put that stuff in your warm up. Doesn't have to be heavy. You have them get a dumbbell out, implement it into, if you have a couple rounds, have them do 25, 30 feet of like a very good, heavily coached session, and you'll get them to do these prehabs and things like that without them really realizing that you're doing it for them. Super easy stuff to put in.
Justin, the PT's also having you strengthen like your periscapular muscles as well.
I mean, I do like scat push-ups already. I told her to do that, but she prescribed more push-ups where I'm not keeping the elbows hugged in, so I'm going to get a little bit further out, so I can get into more of the pecs. And I believe this is also going to get into serratus a little bit more as well.
Yeah, the serratus anterior. Yep.
But that was addressing more of kind kind of a weak bench, a weak chest press. So that's something different. She didn't give me anything hanging overhead, which I do a lot of already. Like I do just dead hangs all the time. I'm not doing a lot of scap pull-ups. Is that what you said?
So, if you want, I can send you some just like band exercises and other things because so your shoulder blade, the muscles around the shoulder blade support the shoulder, right? So your shoulder is not just your rotator cuff. There's you got your rhomboids, then you have the four rotator cuff muscles, then you have the teres major, the lats are also involved, the serratus anterior. The serratus anterior, big thing with the shoulder blade, keeps the shoulder blade down so you don't have like the winging scapula. So the muscles also around the shoulder blade need to fire correctly in order to have that nice scapulohumeral rhythm. So I can give you just like 2 or 3 exercises to do just to help with the periscapular muscles as well.
Yeah, put those in there. Thank you.
Yeah, if you send that in the group, like that could definitely be something I would say that you can implement like as a coach, in class probably like once or twice a week. And would you say that would probably be very effective for preventative measures as well?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Warm up things when we're just doing, I would say anything upper body wise.
Yep.
Give you guys more tools.
Yeah, I've had issues with scapular upward rotation on my left side, which it was pretty noticeable, but not nearly as bad as it used to be. And so what I was doing for a long time, I kind of got away from it, was doing the wall rolls with like a foam
with the
roller up
band.
and down. Not even keep a band over my elbows. Yeah.
Those are
Yep.
really good. I like those. I
Yeah.
forgot about those actually. She just brought that up. And tell me, like at least from your perspective too. I think I find when I'm coaching people that even if they're not in pain, if things just aren't firing well. I think of like a ring dip, for example, and they don't have the muscles that are firing, you should be firing, and they start to struggle on these movements, and then they're going, and by the time they're on set 5, things are starting to get easier suddenly. And I don't, obviously, if you're deep in the set, things should be getting harder. You should be getting fatigued, but then they start moving better. And I think just because muscles are starting to finally wake up and fire. So not even from like a prehab and injury point of view, I think from a performance point of view as well, these things are equally as important to get the most out of your session and, to continue to get fitter and advance versus if I do a set of, 5x5 ring dips and I don't start firing my pec well until set 4, then what do I have? I have like 2 good sets out of 5, and I didn't even really do a proper 5 sets. Would you agree with that as well?
Yeah, I would. I mean, we talk about the neuromuscular connection all the time. So, when you start to, do fitness and get into CrossFit, like you don't build muscle first. You build more motor unit connections first. Then the muscles built after that. So it's interesting because the capacity of our muscles that we use, it's not to our actual full capacity. Pretty interesting. But it also kind of sucks at the same time. But yeah, I think that's also just gonna be very helpful just to start to, I love to say like activation. I love to do activation stuff just to get the body primed and ready for whatever we're about to do, So I think that's great.
And also, like, would you say before we go to the next video, would you say that doing more of these like rehab type, I mean, I don't love to call them that, but those types of movement, would you say that would also help, because you know a lot more than I do in this field, help get more? So you're saying we don't fire as much as we could fire. Do you think that would help fire more and train the brain to actually utilize more of what we have rather than like less of what we have?
I think it will definitely build more motor neural connections.
So like efficiency of what we're using, almost
right.
as like I would maybe connect that too.
Right, because usually like the prehab stuff and all that, like, I mean, you're using bands, using light weights. It's more like mobility, range of motion, just strengthening at those ends, The strength piece comes with the heavy weights, the heavy
actual
movement.
heavy mechanical loading. Okay. Just curious. I'm like trying to learn about that too. It's something I need to do more of, so I know kind of up my own alley here. All right, let's go next lift. We've got a squat snatch. Oh shit, no, I uploaded the wrong video. Tricked you out. We're gonna do a clean.
Huh.
I wore the same shirt, I think, for both days.
Okay, no one noticed.
What's a quick takeaway?
It's a lightweight for you. You went right up to the barbell and you were like, I don't even care about setting up. I'm just gonna get right up into it.
I'll give you more context in a second on that.
That's funny.
But the reason you're saying it, I do not disagree with. I do agree. And then there's another little element in this that I would say, like, if I didn't, obviously I know myself, but if this was someone I didn't know and I saw them clean, I'm like, oh, there is a lot more in this tank. Like, there should be a lot more in the tank, at least I can say.
I mean, I like the hip extension.
That's the one thing I got. I do a terrible job in several other places, but the hip extension is definitely a spot where I tend to excel at. So on the note of hip extension, real quick, just for like coach's eye purposes. When you look at hip extension, and I think when I snatch, it's even better. Because my clean, I have this bad habit of
Early pull.
already putting, yeah, like I put tension in the elbows, and if you notice they stayed the same throughout the entire lift until the extension's done. But it is like an early pull. And the reality is when this does get heavy, I'm not going to be strong enough to keep the tension, and it's eventually going to straighten my arm out, and I'm going to lose power. But when we do talk about hip extension, I come up and I'm literally in a straight line, right? My ankles are going, my knees are completely going, my hips are completely going. So when we watch athletes move, you have a couple points that you can look at in this hip extension. Like I'm gonna look at the hip. Is it so clear as day that the butt got squeezed hard? If the answer is like, I'm not sure, I almost will guarantee you that they have more for the hip. The other thing is some athletes get really, really extended and do really well in the hip. And then you look at the knees and then they have this, like, I'm going to back it up here. They have this little bit of flexion there. So they still have like another half an inch of the knees. And then the same thing for the ankles, right? The ankles we are essentially jumping and shuffling the feet. Like my flat foot to that tippy toe, I go from 5'10" to maybe like 6 foot. That means I got 2 inches taller. That means I have 2 inches of more space to get under this bar too. So when we're really looking at triple extension, I'm going to take my time and look at all 3 of those points on a person. And I even have question, obviously the video is very different because I can slow-mo and drag it and pause it. But if I even have the slightest question of, oh, I don't know if you got there, cue them. Because when they do get there, you're like, oh, that was for sure it. So that's the hip extension though. Let's look at the setup. Justin said a rip and rip.
Yeah, you kind of. Oh no, there. Okay, I was gonna say you lost the tension in the arms a little bit, but I think you fixed it right there.
I do it very, very quickly because I don't have the best mobility. It's a really hard, like I'm completely soft there. And then I do you see the shoulder does roll back. What I would say for me, is do we love this? It's okay, you can knock me. No.
I would have the hips down a little more maybe. And be a little bit more in the heels. You seem a little bit forward.
Yeah, so I'm for sure forward. Like weight distribution wise, like you can see my heels even like this one's a little peeled off, and I definitely have most of my weights in the ball of my foot. Let's watch that as I lift off because I'm just curious what I'm gonna do. So flat feet, or not just flat, but weight in the heel, into the toe. There is a shift back. I think it could be better still though. So in the note of a setup, if I'm dealing with very amateur lifters, and I would say the most of us are amateur lifters. Like I'm probably still an amateur lifter in a sense. I'm gonna start them off with just those flat feet. However, you can have the bar a little bit away and the weights in the toes, and when this shift happens, there's a whole rock back as the bar leaves the floor, and sometimes it's a stylistic way to counter that heavy barbell so it doesn't pull the athlete forward. So occasionally, depending on who you're dealing with, if it's someone that's been lifting a very long time, it could be a stylistic thing that you just have to look out for. I would say in 90% of our cases, though, as coaches in just a CrossFit gym, for sure, make me wiggle those toes, get the weight in the heel. So I don't love the heels. Let's talk about the hip. I don't love it. I don't hate it. So at least your cue is maybe get the hip down more. Give me a little
But yeah,
context of why.
like slightly.
Okay, so it's like a smidge. What do you want to see better when I do that?
I want to see your chest up more.
Yes. So I don't know. Obviously, if I pull my hip down more, you're gonna see my chest. But then I'm gonna ask you a follow-up question. Do you think I can get these back in a little bit more of like thoracic extension and engagement based off this picture? Even though I did it, do you think there's more there?
I think that there is, yeah.
So I would almost say, I think you should hammer me more up top here to get more tension there. And possibly not worry about the angle of the hip. Because if we're really looking at this, like my knees are already in front of the bar, so they're gonna have to clear. My hips are lower than my shoulder, even though I don't have this full engagement. If I just get another quarter inch and get a little more engaged, I think that looks way prettier. So sometimes I think with the hips, we're very fast, especially if we're doing static cues to go butt down, butt down, butt up, whatever direction it's going to be, because that is going to change the torso angle. But make sure like you are addressing like what does that tension look like in the upper back? Because when we start to talk about that tension in the upper back and the lats, even though I'm slightly engaged, I think this is like 265 or 270. It's plenty heavy enough that if I'm not totally locked in and my lats are a little soft, it can get away from me and cause issues in the lift, not just for clean or snatch. So if we don't have full tension, especially as we increase load, that's also going to start to bleed into a poor bar path and that barbell getting away from our body. Does that make sense? I think your eyes are definitely in a good spot and you want to see something. I just think maybe there first.
I think you could, because you're looking at the ground in front of you, I would have started with, look up more. Find a point right in front of, like, on the wall and go from there. See if that helps you bring your chest up higher.
Yes, I don't think I'm looking at the wall. I'm probably looking at the ground, maybe like 10 or 15 feet in front. I definitely have my head up, so I'm not looking at the floor. For me personally, I get very uncomfortable when I try to look up too much. But in the sense of that cue, I do think that cue could work for specific people, especially because where your head goes, your body goes. And we have definitely coached people where they're just like staring at the floor and everything's kind of following. Could be probably a bit more. I think that just goes in with like what Elise is seeing, and she would like to see more of my chest, like the tightness that's going on up here. I just need to take an extra half second and get myself to that uncomfortable state. And that's going to go along with what that angling is and looking up as well. Lift off isn't terrible. I think the hips definitely go a little quicker, but I think that that goes in hand with what Elise said about me being in the toes already. We hate the early pull. Ideally, I don't have that, right? What's something we really like that's going on in the second pull here? So from the top of the knee to about the hip extension. At least I think you're muted. I saw your lips move, but I didn't hear anything.
The barbell's close.
Barbell's super close. So we love bar path. It's even pulling my shorts up. What's something else? positioning I'm getting in here.
I like that little swoop.
That little scoop. So that is a huge, huge one for people. It's a tough one to get them to do. But from this position here, where am I going? So
Oh,
I have my contact in my hip. The bar has stayed close the entire time, and now I'm pushing the bar directly in the direction that I want the bar to go, and that is up. Versus if you don't have that scoop and I'm here and I just squeeze my butt and I just stand tall, where do my hips actually go directionally? They go this way directionally, which goes into the bar and it pushes the barbell out. So this is this scoop of that second pull, and that's like I always tell people like try think about uppercutting the bar with your hips. That's a cue that tends to work really well. When we have days that we'll work with hang work, like hang snatch, hang clean, anything like that, that's a really good one to work with people with. Like people that are pretty good movers, if they have most of the mechanics down, you can make their lifts just really that much better by doing that. Yes, we want to use our hips. Don't get it confused with using your hips like a kettlebell swing. We need a brush and a cut up, not a punch ever. And then last thing, we don't gotta talk about it too much. We don't love the landing, right? Feet definitely spill it wide. Not the most egregious thing I've ever done in my life. There's definitely been worse. But could I get into a squat there? Absolutely not. There's no chance. So I would start to practice on feet a little more narrow and hold that position. So like in that protocol, you have athletes that do this, make them land and hold the receive for 2-3 seconds and then stand. If you want to make it even better, make them land, hold the receive for a second or two, and then make them go directly into a squat without adjusting the feet, just to start to get this habit down while they warm up instead of torturing them like the whole time. Justin, to your point, you said lightweight, right? I would.
What it reminds me of is when we're about to get ready into the workout, and I walk over to someone else's bar that's doing something lighter. I'm like, hey, dude, let me warm up on that real quick. You just hop in, you just like rip it, and then you get ready to go to your actually heavier barbell. That's what it reminds me.
It does kind of look like that. You rip it, and they're kind of yeah, fuck you, dude. So that load was actually 10 pounds off of my PR. It was either 10 or 15 pounds off of my all-time power PR. But to your point, you can see where like I'm deficient in that. Like that bar got super high. I got maybe like 2.5, 3 inches under the barbell. So the bar is rocketing up there. I still have 4 inches to get under the bar and it'd still be counting as a power clean. So when I go to have that land, by having that movement flaw, I'm actually probably taking away another 30, 35 pounds off my potential of my power clean because I've neglected my footwork. Does that make sense? Not that catching a power clean at parallel is a very easy thing to do. I think it's very hard because you have to stick it. But it goes to show how long term that like, yeah, even though I got the lift, so what? I'm actually hindering myself pretty massively when it comes to that. And then like that's like it's either 265 or 270, and you say I probably can do 30 more pounds. If that's a 300 mark, if I go to a competition and I put up a 300 power clean, I'm now top 10 on the leaderboard, and that's a huge, huge difference versus being with the pack. So as much as I hound you guys on it, movement mechanics is going to win at the end of the day, especially when we're consistent in training like we are on this call. Let's go to our next slide. You guys want to see? Oh, let's do a lunge, Justin. Let's do a lunge that we have. We haven't done a lunge yet, I don't think. Ali, you're the kettlebell guru. What do you think of the rack?
I was about to say that's a really nice front rack position.
I agree. I like it. So that's one. Definitely when our clients have kettlebells, like I'm very deliberate as a coach. If I program somebody a kettlebell front rack, I have my intent very high priority on the fact that I want to work their core and I want to work that shoulder stability. So how Justin has it, that bell is still like in front of him, and even though he has the elbow high, you can even tell me if I'm wrong here, Lise. You can even drop it and kind of rest here. I want to make sure that kettlebell is in front of my body. And that's what's going to work the core. If you have those people that throw the kettlebell literally on top of their shoulders and they're almost trying to mimic a barbell front rack or something like that with it, I'm kind of losing the intent of why I made you do a kettlebell front rack to begin with. This way is for sure way harder, but the intent behind it is very important. So really nice job with that, Justin. That's a hard one to get people to do. Let's look at the actual lunge. What do
I
you
like
guys
that
think
you
on
actually
that?
like you step out and you go straight down. I mean, that's what the lunge is. A lot of people, you know, especially like newer folk, they'll lunge and then just continue to go forward. It's like, no, when you
Never.
lunge, take a step and then bring that back knee straight down.
Their momentum goes with the direction of their step, basically.
Yep.
That's a good observation. I actually I didn't initially realize that, but good observation, and it brings me to a good point. When we're lunging, if we have a forward step, that's going to be more of an athletic lunge. So like to Elise's point, like you have to stop your momentum and the momentum of any load you have. Like everything is going forward, that front foot is going to put the brakes on and then we go down. Versus a newer person, a lot of times will have a lot easier of a time doing a reverse lunge because we don't have to stop momentum going forward. So if you have somebody that may have like even sensitive knees, and lunging's okay, but you want to kind of manage the volume and intensity, have them do a reverse lunge. It's a little less impactful because they don't have to stop that forward push. What's something else? I see one thing I would probably make a little tweak on.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I think it's not like a right or wrong, but when I'm pressing away from my top foot, I've heard to press into your heel. But my understanding is if I press into my top of my foot, like towards the toes, as I stand, it's going to work more the quads. And if I press into my heel to stand, it's going to work more posterior. But besides that, is there anything else you could add? Like, what's a better way of doing it?
But that's actually what I did notice, and what I was gonna say is like the pressure of your foot. Um, Ideally, like when we're lifting and doing any lift, I know we coach heels all the time. We're over exaggerating how much in the heels because most people have a really hard time being there and they end up way too far forward. But ideally, we're very even planted on the foot, right? And we have even pressure through the entire foot. In a perfect world, nothing changes just because it's a lunge. Yeah, you are spot on. If you're going to be pushing out of the toe, you are going to get a lot more quad and just anterior chain in general. Versus when that heel's down, we know that's correlated to posterior chain, which is going to be the glute. So that was the thing I noticed. The distance of your step, I think, sometimes dictates that. Like when the knee starts to get a little further forward, it makes it a lot harder for you to drive more midfoot or out of the heel, and it kind of forces you to drive through the toe. And that's something that I like to look at when we have lunge workouts of like, what is the actual distance and are they being efficient with it or not? 90-degree angles, like that shin is pretty vertical. I think that's a pretty efficient spot, especially when you have walking lunges, because you start to see people take these like really, really far steps. And I think it's harder to actually get out of the lunge. They're trying to make their life easier by cutting a step out, but I think they're working harder in trying to cut that step out, and it really doesn't benefit them. So that's something I'll just keep an eye on, just where that distance is, and try not to let that knee get in front of the foot or like lead the way. And then when you talk about something like a split jerk, it's a lunge. It's just a higher receive of the lunge. So you also want to be in a habit where when you just take a step, you're in those same mimicking positions every time too, for when we get to those more advanced movements, even though we're not thinking about doing a split jerk right now. But it's like that muscle memory, brain to muscle communication going on. There's another thing I noticed that's a really good thing. You guys got it?
The vertical torso.
Yes. I think that's so overlooked. It's just like a squat. We want that to be high. And if you think back to like when you guys are in the gym coaching, how many people do lunges and they do not stay vertical? They all lean forward and you really have to fight them to stay up. So it's like a very overlooked, taken for granted position, but really, really nice job on the vertical torso, Justin. I like that. And that's something when we're lunging, coach that vertical torso. At the moment we get a front rack lunge or, you know, an overhead, things get interesting real quick if they're not doing it. You guys want to go handstand push up, strict, or do you want to go overhead squat?
Handstand push-up.
Yeah, we haven't done gymnastics yet. No, hold on. This is one of those buried ones I have to find real quick. Sorry. I think I took a peek at this and I think I slightly remember.
Ooh, Gina, for that fight.
Great job. So you guys, this was several weeks ago. We looked at the same thing for Gina, a negative strict handstand push-up. And I don't know if you guys remember or not, but one of our comments was that we thought she could be a little bit more into like the tripod position, even though she was on the wall. She had the elbow angling going a little bit. And then we look at this one. Do we like it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is a phenomenal job. Keep it proportionally stretching. A phenomenal job, especially having her back on a wall. So when we're doing handstand push-ups and, you know, we have people kipping and things like that, we should still see this position that's going on here. Right. So look for when we've got that going on. If you got the person with the hands out and they're coming straight down and it's like a straight line, if you're playing connect the dots, you have a straight line and you don't have a triangle, that's something to correct. What's a good cue if you do see that?
If we do see what, sorry?
Like if someone's doing handstand push-ups and they have those hands in a straight line and you're gonna try to bring, you know, more to a tripod position, what would be like a good cue to get them?
I would be like, shoot your elbows back.
Yeah, change the angle. I like to say hug yourself with your elbows. Because they think about bringing it in and it creates that like external rotation and tension as well. And you'll also get stronger movement sometimes with it. Like if we're in a full-blown tripod, they're hard because your triceps have to work a lot. But especially if we're on the wall like this, when we start to flex and squeeze in, I start to activate my pec a lot, which is not the main mover, but it's an assister in this press. And we can make that movement a little bit better. Let's say you've got somebody doing handstand push-ups on the wall, they're in that same bad position with a straight line. And I'm trying to think of a way to word this to not give you the answer. And you tell them, you give them the cue that Elise did or that I said, and you're trying to bring their elbows forward, but they're not able to do it. What might be wrong in that position?
The hand placement.
The hand placement. So if someone's super, super wide, it's going to start to make it way too challenging to get into that tripod. So we have to look at, okay, actual setup position for this. Where are the hands? Perfect world, hands outside the shoulder. In the gymnastic space, that means that your index fingers are touching the outside of your shoulder. That is a super narrow grip when we start to look at it on people. So we're going to be a little bit wider than that for what we do. Because we're mimicking more of a barbell and we don't want our finger on top of our shoulder. So look at the hand placement because that may also be dictating, can they get that shoulder angling that we want? And I think long term, just a little healthier for the shoulders. And you people upside down doing handstand push-ups, they should have that prerequisite of that strength anyway, so they're not jackhammering their neck. Let's look at this one more time. Anything else you can maybe cue? I think she did a phenomenal job compared to the last one. Last one wasn't bad, but this one's just even that much better. Besides good work, because I think good work's for sure on the table, what may be like another comment? How do we continue to move that needle forward?
Just control all the way down, especially like the last couple inches.
Yeah, that last inch, always the toughest thing. Whether it's pull up or this, like really fight the inch. And I don't want to say she's not, she may be, and just maybe at the point where it's kind of like falling through a little bit. What's something else? We love what's going on with those hands and arms. What
She
about
does
the
a good
rest
job
of her?
keeping midline activation the whole time. Her ribs barely move. And she has to keep it a little bit of extension in the lumbar or mid back, but
Yeah,
it's not.
if she got too big of a hollow, it would kind of like pull her off the wall because the feet would start to want to leave. I think that's actually where we could maybe get better, but it's a tricky statement because I do think you're right. She's very engaged in trying to keep this and keep tension as she's moving. But I feel like, and you guys can agree or disagree with me here, I feel like, come on, start all the way. She kicks up, she's soft, all of a sudden you see tension, and then you see how there's just like a little bit of a waver here and there, and it's not totally rock solid. I love the intent, but I think if we doubled down on this and she was doing like these negatives and then in between sets, she laid on the floor and you can put like your hands on the wall. A lot of gymnasts will do this, and she practiced really getting as tense as she can, but not in the upside down position. I think she could probably get that much tenser. And the only reason I would say let's go to it is she is doing such a good job. I do like the hand placement. I do like most of the control besides the last inch, but I mean, she's fighting it. If I want to try to eventually get her off of this wall and progress her into more advanced gymnastics, I need that tension, and I can't have any little waver here and there because that's going to be where the balance starts to fall apart. So it's like I'm just trying to drive her to those more advanced things, even though maybe she may or may not ever get there. But if we can just continue to make it that much better, when the strength does develop here, this is going to get that much stronger and that much easier. It's the same that it's that chasing virtuosity mind frame with it. I think maybe just slightly, even though she doesn't move a ton, I think that could be maybe tuck the hair more. You guys see what I'm saying in the ribs? I mean, real slight. But really, overall, I think really nice job, especially if you remember that last video. I think Gina crushed that. When we do a hollow on the floor and we're coaching class and I'm teaching this class, do we want to take that hollow that we're doing on the ground and do we want to put it into application when it comes to handstand push-ups, pull-ups, like the degree of it?
Yeah, I mean, a true hollow, you're not trying to bring your feet and your hands up to the ceiling. You're trying to reach wall to wall.
Yes.
So you're trying to become very long, squeeze your butt, squeeze your abs, and try to become very long.
Yeah, and I just wanted to bring that point up because like if I am hanging on a pull-up bar and I'm in a hollow, it's not gonna look like that big banana. I always call it like a sideways banana when you're on the floor. It's not gonna look like that. Like that's egregious. It's gonna be the much tighter. Ribs are slightly tucked. I'm trying to get long. I'm trying to get tense. Hollow. So when you guys are doing things like that, I like to practice it, the push up a lot. I think it's really easy position to like get in and move in. Remember, the degree is very slight. It's not huge. And that's something that definitely you see people jump up on bars and they do this huge banana immediately. When we keep swinging, it's gonna grow. But when we're static, it's very, very slight. You almost look like more of a straight line than anything.
Something that's helped me in my classes to get them to know how to do the true hollow when they're hanging is to just like dead hang, then activate their shoulders, and then just simply squeeze their abs. Like leave their legs loose and squeeze their abs, and all of a sudden you see that the feet shift forward, but it's not because they're bringing it forward, it's because they're getting into that proper hollow. And that just clicked for a lot of people when I showed it like that.
Yeah, I like that. And then really the last thing you would have to do is to squeeze your leg muscles, point your toes. Versus they're not thinking about moving their feet. And I think when they
Right.
think about moving their feet, they move too much.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like that. And I really like that for just a teaching tool too. Like that stays much, much more simple. Than like belaboring. Yeah, time for this. Do you remember what you were doing here, Justin? I haven't looked at this one yet.
Yeah, so I did a Metcon of push jerks, bar facing burpees, and those lunges that we just saw. I think this is probably going to be the bar facing burpees,
Burpee, okay.
which I'm excited about getting information
I
on.
like, by the way, guys, if you have clips of Metcons, I think we've done a lot of like static lifts, or I shouldn't say static lifts, but like individual lifts to where we lifted, we rested, we lifted, we rested. If you want to clip and record people in Metcons, I think those are great because I think those are the harder ones to cue and correct because you have the intensity of the movement. So anytime you want to do like a full Metcon too, do it.
It was 21, 15, and 9, by the way.
Pretty fast moving, I would say.
Interesting side jump there, Justin. Bringing your feet up.
I think I discovered that during the open this year on those snatch and dumbbell snatch and
Dumbbell.
jumping over there.
That
Dumbbell.
doesn't like fatigue you quicker.
I think it does. I mean,
I think
I've
it
tried it like
fatigues-
that.
I think it's probably does fatigue me maybe a little bit faster, but I think I have a lot more speed this way. And I'm like this I was trying to just go as fast as I could on these and then pace the jerk and pace the lunges. I just wanted to go super fast here. So I was like I didn't care about anything else besides speed.
Yes, I think the fact that your intent was to go fast, I like it.
Yeah.
What I will say, so like I don't remember who said it. To that point, for sure, probably gets more fatiguing. So I think it's going to be, where are we? Are we in the last 10 reps of burpees of the workout and we're trying to sprint finish, or is it a sprint workout, or are we in, a workout that has 90 bar facing burpees and we need to be a little bit more deliberate in our movement? I think in the case that you're sprinting, I like to jump out sideways. The sideways, whether we're taking a step or doing this, you should kind of end up sideways. Why do I say that instead of facing the bar directly?
Because then you're like turning in the air instead of just.
Yeah, you got to get turned
Jumping.
around at some
Yeah.
point, so we can at least get half turned around on the come up. So I like that you're jumping sideways. If this was a workout that Justin had 90 of these in, and it was more of a chipper down, and then you would just take a big step with this outside leg here and get sideways and then jump. So it's a step jump versus a little jump, pretty much. There's something else he's doing here that I really, really like. That's going to help him keep moving. Any ideas?
I mean,
He's
the down
staying-
up with his chest.
Say-
He's not
say-
pausing at.
Oh,
He's
like
not
quick off
pausing at the
ground?
bottom. Yeah, it's like a quick recoil down up.
Probably saves him
Down
energy
up.
versus laying there and doing like a push up. Dee, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say he's staying low, like pretty low, with his hands
gonna-
already like facing the floor.
For sure,
So-
add some speed. Yep, I like that. What's another thing?
And I can't tell with that burpee, but with the other one, he kind of goes to this, he's kind of like angled to the bar instead of like straightforward. I don't know if that makes a difference or not.
What about getting dizzy?
Oh, he's facing the same,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I would go to guess that Justin like deliberately was like, I'm going to face this direction, because otherwise you just end
Yeah.
up doing this little circle and
Yeah,
then we
more
end
like-
up dizzy. Yeah, and once you get dizzy, like it's not so bad that like you have to literally stop, but you have like this 10-15 second window where you're just like, ooh, like I'm spinning for a second. I need to get my bearing before I pick this barbell up and do push jerks. So I really, really like that you're facing the same direction the whole time. Same thing on box jump overs. I always tell people pick a wall. Like if you think about it, I'm just always gonna face this wall. It's a little bit easier to not accidentally spin than if you're trying to think of what leg I have to jump out or step out of. So if you just think, I just always got to face this direction, it kind of simplifies it for your brain. So bar facing burpees, box jump overs, like all of those movements, very, very minor, but if per round there's a 5-second pause of him being slightly dizzy before he's got to grab the bar, 21:15.9, like that's 15 seconds right there on a workout that fast. That could be a massive window. So yeah, Justin, I do like that. Watch it one more time. I feel like there's something else I want to say, but I'm not sure what it is, to be honest.
How do we feel about feet going wide as you come down versus feet more narrowed?
Yeah, I think
I
wide
like-
is better.
I
Yeah.
like wide personally, for a couple reasons. One, you're closer to the floor, so you're not having to travel as much distance. If you're not traveling as much distance, you're gonna save time. And then two, if you're tight at all, when you have tight hamstrings, it's a much easier burpee versus if those hamstrings are tight, you kind of do run into a little bit of like a mobility wall if the feet are super narrow. I think I know what I want to say, by the way. Watch when he comes up. So he lays down, right? And right here, I think you should be working on already jumping your feet all the way to your leg. But watch how you do a hitch. It's like you peel off the ground, you find your feet under you, and then you go. See how there's just like a little bit of like a delay right there? It's like you find the feet to jump. Try to maybe see if you can mix out that as soon as you peel off the ground, you're like kind of jumping from where you are. I'm gonna be honest, I don't think it's gonna go super smooth the first time. I think it's gonna be something you're gonna have to like play with a little bit. But you guys see how I see that little delay?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you say 45 reps, it's a 1/4 second delay. Now we're also looking at an additional 15 seconds. Have you guys ever seen the burpee that's like a nosedive? I think Catching David's daughter does it extremely well. And basically what it is, instead of going like hip down and then they lay, they kind of go like chest down first, and they get so much tension in their arms that they get this recoil from like the tension. And that would come with, I think, practicing, like the handstand push-up Gina was doing with their shoulders and tension, or regular push-ups when you're getting a lot of tension in there and it's almost being bouncy and springy. I think you would have to practice those before you did that, like that nose dive, chest dive burpee. But I think, Justin, if you could practice that and get those down somehow, I think what would happen is your feet would be a little more under you rather than laying relaxed back, and then you have to like get a grip for your feet to make the jump. Like they would already be grippy because you went chest, and it's kind of like chest hip and you're back up. I'm gonna find a video. Yeah, I know you've seen it. Have any of you guys seen that?
Mm-mm.
I'm gonna find a video of Catching David's daughter doing it. They're so springy and quick. And I'm gonna be super honest, the first time I saw her do it, I tried to mimic it and I did it and I knocked all the air out of me. So proceed with caution when it comes to doing it, but if you can get it down, you can feel how quick you are off the floor. They are a lot faster. But just something to play with in it. But Justin, I think overall, pretty nice job in the burpee. Do you feel like you accomplished what you were trying to there?
Yeah, I'm doing a grid competition this week, and I'm sure like one of my responsibilities is going to be bar facing burpees. So I wanted to see what's the fastest I could actually do one, and I almost just kind of just got creative and just did what my body was like saying. What's the fastest way I can do it? And this is what it came up with. So I think this is probably what I'll do to recreate for this competition on this weekend. So I was happy with
I'm
it.
gonna
Came out.
I'm gonna send the group that I'm gonna try to find one of Patrick Davis' daughter doing that one burpee. And then just before you go, play with it. Like I wouldn't go right into a bar facing, just do regular ones first, see if it's something that you can pick up. Because I do think you'll shave a couple seconds off of like your round at least by like if you can get those down. They're pretty cool to watch actually for being a burpee. They're entertaining. What time is it? We're ready to go. We can call it a day today. So before we totally wrap up, we did teaching. We kind of bled into seeing and correcting a little bit for next week. I'm gonna come back to that. We're still gonna talk about seeing and correcting. But if you guys want to, if you're comfortable, if you want to take any like videos at like your coaching class or anything like that, like a little specific warm up and share them. I know Jose's done it. That would go good with it as well. If not, I think I do have some older videos of Jose, and I probably have some of me from a long time ago, that I'm gonna pull up so we can actually kind of get like an eyes-on visual to what we're saying. But if you guys want to make any fresh ones, feel free, send them in. We'll use that for Tuesday's call. If not, I'll be guinea pig. Other than that, I don't think I have anything else. It's good to go. Cool. All right, y'all. Have a good weekend, and I will see you guys Tuesday.
See you guys.